Namaskar. I welcome you to this exposition to scientific foundations of Jain philosophy. You have this unique opportunity to learn about a philosophy which deals with the realities of life and at the same time also tell you about the universe we live in. There are two ways to know the truth and the realities. One, philosophy, and other, science. Our main focus in this attempt will be to learn about Jain philosophy, but at the same time, we'll also be talking about scientific principles and propositions in order to make a comparison between the Jain philosophy and science, and at the same time to appreciate the scientific nature of Jain philosophy. What is philosophy? Philosophy is concerned with knowing the truth of nature in a rational way. So the philosophers, they are people who think in a very rational way and try to explore the realities of the universe. Jain philosophy presents the truth of both the animate and inanimate forms of nature in a rational way. This is a specialty of Jain philosophy. It not only deals with inanimate kind of nature, but also the animate kind of nature, in the sense that it deals with the living beings, it deals with the universe. Whereas the modern science has explored only the physical order of existence in detail, in a very systematic way, and has discovered the laws of nature. So it's creditable to modern science, in fact, that it has discovered the physical order of existence in very detail and has given us so many comforts and facilities in our life. It's really creditable to modern science, but the modern science does not deal with life in the real sense, But both the Jain philosophy and science are seekers of truth. But the domain of Jain philosophy spans, as I told you, the entire range of existences, both the animate and inanimate, whereas science is limited only to material form of existence. So this is the limitation of science. Then science believes in objective way of investigation and regards personal experiences as subjective. This is very important. Science believes in objective way of investigation means, that, whatever is found by science or investigated by science is true in space and time. So whatever findings are there at this particular time or at this particular place will also be true at any other place and at any other time. This is the way the science believes. And the subjective experience, our experiences are not like that. They are not objective, they are subjective. That is, we feel something now and we'll feel something else sometime later. So our experiences are time dependent. Our experiences are also space dependent. We go from one place to another and have different kind of feelings. So that rule of science, that everything is same in space and time, does not apply to individuals like us or to any other living being for that matter. So there is a difference between the way the science deals with reality and the way the Jain philosophy or any other philosophy for that matter deals with reality. Modern science has proceeded on two broad assumptions. Number one, the physical processes follow the law of causality. All processes which are taking place in nature, they follow the cause and effect relationship. For any cause there is an action, and for every action there is a cause. So that kind of relationship holds good for all the phenomena which are taking place in nature. And number two, all truths are empirically verifiable. So science believes in experimentation. Science believes that whatever happens in nature can also be proved in laboratory. That's very good, because that confirms the findings, or the phenomena which are taking place in nature. But then it is limited only to the physical order of existence, and this kind of approach does not apply to living beings. Jainism says, on the other hand, that law of causality is true for all forms of existences, whether animate or inanimate. That's very important. You say there is a generalization of this particular rule of causality, that it applies to inanimate objects, material objects, as the science says, but it also applies to living beings, the animate existences. So it's a very generalized form of law. And number two, all truths are not empirically verifiable. Some are only experienced. You can take several examples in your own life, If you have certain feelings towards your friend or your relation, or you love someone, then how do you verify these experiences in a laboratory? You can't do that. You can't verify them in a laboratory. So all experiences and the truths, it's true that you do or love somebody, it's a truth. But you can't verify that in a laboratory. It's not empirically verifiable. So some of the experiences, subjective experiences which you have, cannot be verified empirically. Then, we talk of spirituality, you talk of soul. We will talk about it in very great detail in our lectures. But to begin with, we know that there is soul, And so we have a concept of spirituality in our life. Science does not deal or oppose spirituality. Science does not say anything about soul, and it does not oppose it, because it doesn't say anything about it. It doesn't deal with, simply doesn't deal with it. That's beyond its jurisdiction. So science has limitations that, it cannot describe anything spiritual. Jain philosophy does not oppose science, There are some religions, we know that, who have a difficulty to encounter with scientific facts, but that's not so with the Jain philosophy. Jain philosophy has no problem with science, It does not oppose science. It regards both as means of knowing truth. Science also tries to know the truth of the material form of existences, and the Jain philosophy also tries to know the truth both of life as well as the non-life or the material forms of existences. So in that way, both are seekers of truth, albeit in a limited way, because science, of course, confines only to one form of existence. Jain philosophy has a scientific approach to nature, When it studies nature, when I say nature, it includes both the living and non-living, Both are part of nature. So science, the Jain philosophy has a scientific approach to know the nature and satisfy the rational way of thinking, This is the present trend, Our minds are very rational these days, and we want to rationally understand everything which is told to us in a very logical way. Well, that condition is satisfied with Jain philosophy. Jain philosophy does not impose any view. That's very important. It presents a view and tells you, look here, you understand and believe only when you understand it. So there is a rational way of telling all principles in Jain philosophy, and therefore these will also satisfy the rational mind because they are logical. They have a rational behind every proposition. So that's very important. So many of the principles again have a great scientific value. Even to modern day science, there is something which can be given by Jain philosophy. There are certain facts which are not yet discovered by modern science, and they are there in Jain philosophy. So we will come across such things in our lectures, something which Jain philosophy tells you, and science is silent about these things. And even the normal laws of physics or normal laws of science or biology or any other kind of science, they are made to a great extent present in Jain philosophy. So Jain philosophy is versatile in that sense that many of the things which are known to science are also known to Jain philosophy, but in addition to that, Jain philosophy knows something more, something beyond that. And these statements, I am quoting here statements of two great scholars, about the scientific nature of Jain philosophy. L.P. Tessiteri, Italian scholar, says Jainism is of a very high order. Its important teachings are based upon science. The more the scientific knowledge advances, the more the Jain teachings will be proven. So you accept this fact, that the Jain propositions are very scientific, and also accepts the fact that the present day science probably does not have the capacity to know all what Jain philosophy is saying. So he expects that as the science advances, they will understand what is being said in Jain philosophy. So that's very important. And the second statement which I am quoting here is from Dr. Walter Strobing, a German scholar. He observes, he who has a thorough knowledge of the structure of the world cannot but admire the inward logic and harmony of Jain ideas. So he appreciates that the Jain ideas are really logical and harmonious, with nature. They hand in hand with the refined cosmological or cosmographical ideas goes a high standard of astronomy and mathematics. Mathematics has been developed to a great extent by Jain scholars, Jain acharyas, and so also astronomy. So he appreciates this fact that there are many good ideas in Jain mathematics and Jain astronomy. So this in fact supports what I am saying, that Jain philosophy is very scientific in its approach. A special feature of Jain philosophy is that propositions of life principles have a psychic component as well as a physical component counterpart. Let's try to understand this. For example, I have a body, you also have a body, and so also all living beings. And every one of us also have soul, So I have a soul, you have a soul. And the physical body is connected to soul, So whatever exists in the physical body has some component in the soul. Whatever we are doing physically, whether we are doing some kind of activity or I am speaking or I am thinking, all these processes are also taking place in the soul in some way. So there is a one-to-one relationship between what happens in soul and what happens in the body. This is a specialty of Jain philosophy. And ultimately, we will learn that nothing happens in the body unless something happens in the soul. The soul is the source of all activities. So basically, all activities of all kinds originate in the soul and they are taking place in the body. A fact which is hard to experience for scientists. Science helps in understanding the physical part. The physical processes which are taking place in the body to understand these processes, the science helps very much, because science has explored the body system in detail, and therefore that knowledge helps us to understand what is being said in Jain philosophy. Because earlier this knowledge of science, modern science was not present, and therefore whatever is being written in our texts is not in this particular kind of a language. So if we want to understand in the modern context, in the modern form, obviously we take help of science and try to interpret and rewrite the Jain facts in a modern way, and that helps us very much to understand in modern context how they relate with the scientific facts. A complementary approach of studying Jain philosophy and science together offers way to. So what we are doing now is we study the Jain philosophy. At the same time, we are also studying side by side the scientific principles. So this kind of study will help us to understand Jain philosophy in modern context, as I already said. Then explore avenues where Jain principles can help science. Just a minute, please. So this is also important. The other way also is true, that the Jain philosophy can help in furthering or advancing our knowledge in science. So it can help science to progress, and this is the way to fully understand nature. So two together will enable us to understand the nature in a complete way, in a holistic way. Jain philosophy is unique in the respect that it combines with science in a way that no other philosophy does. So there is no problem. The Jain philosophy has absolutely no problem with modern science. You can combine with it so that the two go side by side, and there is no controversy or there is no opposition of any kind. And this kind of capacity or a capability is perhaps not there in any other philosophy. This course will introduce you the basic tenets of philosophy. So what we are going to learn here in this course is the basics of Jain philosophy. Because of its beginning, it will not be possible to learn the detailed treatment of Jain philosophy. So we will confine to basics and try to understand them in the scientific perspective. The book which is prescribed for this particular course is my book, Scientific Explorations of Jain Doctrines. And this book is available on Amazon, and its e-edition is going to come shortly. This book shall help you also in supplementing what I am telling here in these lectures, and will also help you the writing assignments where they are given. Let us start our study thinking about the universe. So this is the first stage of learning. You can ask a question: who created this universe? This is a very question often asked, who created the universe? The answer in Jain philosophy, no one. The universe is beginningless, eternal, has always been there. So there is no question of creation, it has always been existing. But the only thing is that it does not exist in the same form all the time. Its form keep on changing. It's not always the same, So there are time changes in the universe or the constituents of the universe. So, but the universe is eternal, even if it is changing. So the nature remains the same. It maintains its particular specific nature, but the forms keeps on changing, but it is eternal and has no creation. Next question can be asked, who controls the universe? And answer again is no one. Universe is controlled by laws. No one else controls the universe, it is controlled by laws. So there are laws for the material form of existence, and there are laws for the soul, So everything is controlled by laws, although the laws are different for the two kinds of existences, but the laws are there and they govern the whole universe. So there is no creator and no controller God. This is very important in regard to Jain philosophy. There are, as you know, other philosophies which believe that the universe has been created by God and it is controlled by God. Well, Jain philosophy does not believe in anything like that. So the next question could be, what does the universe consist of? What is there in the universe? So there are two things which everybody can see. One, matter. Everybody can see matter around. There are objects and objects. They are all made of matter. And then there is life. There are living beings. We see all kinds of living beings. All kinds of living beings around us, So these two things are easily visual or visualizable by every one of us. We see them. Life, of course, exists in different forms, You see human beings, you see animals, you see small insects and so on. So a different form, So does the matter. You see the objects are different forms, You see mountains, you see rivers, you see table, chair in your room and so on. So they are all matter. They are all made of matter. So both the living beings and matter exist in different forms. Besides these two important substances which I told you, there are other components of the universe, say for example space, time and so on. So we will talk them in the next lecture, what are all the substances present in the universe. But for the time being, you know about matter, you know soul, then you know space and time. And we shall study all these components in detail. And our special attention shall be on living beings, that's very important. Unless we understand living beings, we can't understand the universe. So we will study different forms of life, working of the life systems, and address questions like why life exists. This can be another question, why do we exist? Why any other animal exists? Why? There is a reason for this. And the next, if you exist, how life should be lived? Okay, you are there, how should you live? How should you live your life? And what is the purpose of your life? You are living the life just like that? Or is there any purpose of your life? You must know. And you can make out, what is the purpose of life by studying this philosophy. We shall also study relationship between the living beings and matter, That's very important. For example, if I say I exist, that means my soul exists, my body exists. There are two different things. So soul is different and body is different, and the life, me, as a combination of a soul and matter. So, what is the relationship between the soul and body? What is the relationship between soul and matter? We are going to study that in detail. And also our relationship with the environment, all the things around us. What is the relationship between me and the environment? That I must know. So we see that the constituents of the universe are different kinds of substances. The substance is a technical term of Jain philosophy, and we must very clearly understand the meaning of what is a substance. That's very important. It has a very specific meaning. The universe is made up of substances. We call them dravya in Jain philosophy, but okay, don't mind this particular term, it's a substance. So the universe consists of substances only. There are substances in the universe and nothing else. What is a substance? We must define. So a substance is capable of eternal continuous existence through infinite succession of origination and cessation. It's a very heavy statement. Let us try to understand this. A substance is capable of eternal continuous existence. Although there are changes taking place in its form, So a substance is undergoing continuous transformation. Its form keep on changing. But even under this condition is continuously exists. So the two things are simultaneously happening now. Continuous existence and transformation. Two things are happening simultaneously in every substance which we will talk of. So, and this is the property, the identifying property of a substance, that it is capable of eternal continuous existence. The existence never ends, it always continues to exist, but through a chain of origination and cessation, that is a chain of transformation. That's number one. Number two, a substance is also the assortment of qualities or attributes. So substance always has certain qualities, So there is no substance without qualities. And each substance has different qualities. So you can distinguish between two substances because they have different qualities or attributes, So this is another specialty of or identifying characteristic of a substance, that it has qualities. Substance experiences transformation or modification of its state, as I told you. And during this process of transformation, the precedent mode ceases to exist and the succeeding mode originates. But the basic nature of the substance is preserved in this change. So, when there is a transformation, we are talking of two states. There is one state now and there will be another state henceforth, So, one state ceases to exist. For example, take the case of ice or water, We know water exists, we find water in nature. And if you cool that water, it becomes ice. And if you heat it, it becomes vapor. It has a different states, it has a solid state and a liquid state and a gaseous state. But the form is same. Chemically, it remains H2O. So its existence is continuous, its existence continues, but forms keeps on changing. This is one example, and likewise you can have many other examples. So this origination, cessation, permanence is a basic characteristic of a substance, And if a substance does not satisfy this condition, it's not a substance at all. So this implies that a substance is neither created or nor destroyed. It is only changing its form. So nothing is created and nothing is destroyed. No substance is created, no substance is destroyed. Matter is not created, matter is not destroyed. Soul is not created, soul is not destroyed. Remember, this is very important principle of Jain philosophy. All objects are transitory, permanent. Okay, so transitory, permanent. They are in transition, transitory form. So now we come to this stage that we say that the substance has three characteristics. Number one, it is real, that it is follows the OCP rule, the origination, conservation, and preservation. It possesses qualities. So a substance will always have qualities, and substance will also have modes, paryaya. Now, if the forms goes on changing, then it goes from one mode to another. So these modes are known as a paryaya. So it has mode, timely, in the time sequence, it has a different form, different modes. Qualities discriminate between the substances, as I told you. Say different substances will have different qualities, and therefore we are able to make a distinction between them. Mode produces conjugate forms of a substance, timely, one after another form comes in existence. Qualities coexist in a substance. So if there is a substance, there will be qualities and both will coexist. Each substance has infinite qualities. There is another statement, There are not finite qualities or numbered qualities, There are infinite qualities in each substance. Modes occur in succession, as I told you, one after another. Modes takes place both in substance and qualities. So substance has different forms, so also quality. The qualities also has different form. It also undergoes transformation. The quality can also change from grade to grade. Modes are of two types now. One called as intrinsic mode and other is extrinsic mode. There are two types of changes taking place in every substance. Intrinsic mode is not visible and subtle. For example, you have a table or you have a chair in your house. Do you think that there is no life of table and chair? There is a life, It exists for certain life. There is a span of life for each object, which you have in your house. And at some point in time, you find that it is of no use and it is broken or damaged or it loses its shape and so on. So there are gradual changes taking place in every substance which you have or which exists in nature. This is a subtle change and this is intrinsic to every substance. Then there are extrinsic modes of changes, the gross mode of changes which are visible and which you can see that yes, the things have changed. For example, you have a gold coin and you give it to a goldsmith, he makes a necklace out of it. So the coin is changed into a necklace. The things remain same and you can see that, it has changed its form from a coin to a necklace, but the identity has not changed. It is gold. In both cases, it is gold. So the extrinsic modes are visible. You can identify. You can see that yes, change is taking place, and these changes take place with the help of some agency, some auxiliary cause. It can be heat, cold, or a worker or a doer. So a blacksmith is an auxiliary cause to turn the coin into a necklace, Similarly, suppose you have a stone and there is an artist who can make an image, a sculpture, makes a good sculpture out of that stone, and you see a beautiful image. The stone has turned into a image, So you can see the change, but this is extrinsic, because now you can see it, and some external force, external agency is required to make this particular change, So there are two kinds of changes taking place in every substance: intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic changes are taking place every time, but the extrinsic changes will take place only when the external agency is acting. Say, for example, we are in a human form at the moment, and because of our karma, about which we are going to learn later, in the next life, we can be born in some other form, we can be born as an animal or an insect and so on. So, this kind of thing happens always. So, in this lecture, what we have done, we said that the universe consists of substances, that's number one, and we can define a substance, and the OCP rule was given to you, and any substance then will have three characteristics. As I said, it satisfies the OCP rule. It has qualities and it has modes. And then we said that there are modes both in substances as well as in quality. And then we said that the modes are of two types, intrinsic and extrinsic. So that's how we learn about the substance. In the next lecture, we will talk about what are the different kind of substances which are present in the universe. Thank you.